Right now, somewhere in your mind, there's a thought running on a loop. Maybe it's, I'm not good enough. Maybe it's, something bad is about to happen. Maybe it's just replaying that awkward thing you said 3 days ago, over and over, for no reason you can explain. Here's the strange part. You don't want to think it. You'd give almost anything to stop. And yet, somehow, it keeps coming back. More reliably than your favorite song. More persistent than any habit you've ever tried to build on purpose. What if I told you that's not a flaw in your thinking? What if your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do? And the very mechanism that once kept your ancestors alive is now quietly running your inner life. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why negative thoughts feel so sticky, so automatic, so much louder than anything positive. And more importantly, you're going to learn 3 research-backed ways to loosen their grip, without pretending to be happy, without forcing positivity, and without fighting a battle you were never built to win. Let's start with a simple question. Why does one cruel comment from a stranger outweigh 100 compliments? Why can a single mistake at work erase an entire week of good performance in your own mind? Psychologists have a name for this. It's called the negativity bias, and it was first formally described in a landmark 2001 paper by psychologist Roy Baumeister and his colleagues, titled, fittingly, Bad is Stronger Than Good. Baumeister's team reviewed decades of research across relationships, learning, memory, and emotion, and found the same pattern again and again. Negative events, negative feedback, negative information, they all carry more psychological weight than positive ones of equal size. Losing $50 hurts more than finding $50 feels good. One harsh word from a partner does more damage than one kind word does repair. It's not that you're pessimistic. It's that your brain is built with an asymmetry, and that asymmetry runs deep. To understand why, we have to go back much further than modern psychology, back to the environment your brain was actually designed for. Imagine you're a human being 50,000 years ago, walking across a grassy plain. You hear a rustle in the bushes. 99 times out of 100, it's just the wind. But one time, it's a predator. Here's the critical detail. The cost of those 2 mistakes is wildly unequal. If you assume danger and you're wrong, you waste a little energy being startled. Mildly annoying. But if you assume safety and you're wrong, you don't get a second chance to learn from it. Because of that lopsided cost, evolution didn't build a brain that weighs threats and rewards equally. It built a brain that treats threats as the priority, always scanning, always ready to notice what might go wrong before it notices what's going right. This is often called the smoke detector principle, and it explains why your mind doesn't wait for certainty before sounding an alarm. A smoke detector that misses one real fire is a disaster. A smoke detector that goes off falsely a dozen times is just annoying. So evolution tuned your brain like an oversensitive smoke detector, not a perfectly calibrated one. That ancient wiring hasn't gone anywhere. Your brain today still runs on largely the same threat detection software it had on the savannah. Except now, instead of predators in the bushes, it's scanning for social rejection, financial insecurity, health scares, and reputational threats. The stakes have changed. The alarm system hasn't. This is where a specific brain structure becomes important. The amygdala, a small almond-shaped cluster of neurons sitting deep in the brain, long associated with detecting threat and triggering emotional response. Neuroscientist Rick Hanson has a phrase that captures this beautifully. He says the brain is like Velcro for negative experiences, but Teflon for positive ones. A painful memory latches on instantly and holds tight. A pleasant one slides right off unless you deliberately pause to let it sink in. Here's what's actually happening, mechanically. When something negative happens, your amygdala fires quickly and strongly, flagging the event as important and pushing it toward long-term storage. Positive experiences, by contrast, tend to be processed more by other brain regions in a slower, gentler way. And unless you consciously linger on them, they often don't get the same neural stamp of significance. It's not that positive experiences are rare, it's that your brain isn't built to file them away with the same urgency. Now layer on top of this something psychologists call the rumination cycle. Rumination is the tendency to replay a negative thought or event again and again, without actually resolving it. Psychologist Susan Nolen-Hoeksema, who spent much of her career researching this pattern, found that rumination doesn't just fail to solve problems. It actively deepens negative mood and makes people less able to think their way out of distress. It feels like you're processing the problem. What you're actually doing, in most cases, is rehearsing it, strengthening the very neural pathway you wish would fade. Think of thought patterns like paths through a forest. The first time you have a worried thought, it's like walking through untouched grass. Slow, effortful, a faint trace left behind. But every time you walk that same path again, it gets a little more worn, a little more obvious, a little easier to fall into without noticing. Eventually, it's not a path you choose. It's the path your feet find automatically, because it's the path of least resistance. Neuroscientists sometimes summarize this with the phrase neurons that fire together, wire together, a shorthand for the way repeated mental patterns physically reinforce the connections in your brain. So here is the honest picture. You are not weak-willed. You are not broken. You have a threat detection system that once kept your ancestors alive, a memory system that stores pain more efficiently than pleasure, and a thinking pattern that, left unchecked, wears its own grooves deeper with every repetition. Negative thoughts aren't a personal failing. They're the predictable output of an ancient system operating in a modern world it was never designed for. The good news is that a system built through repetition can also be reshaped through repetition. Your brain's ability to change in response to experience, what researchers call neuroplasticity, is not just a tool for forming negative patterns. It works in the other direction too, and that's exactly where we're headed next. If negative thoughts are grooves worn into a path, the goal isn't to somehow erase the path. You can't delete a neural pathway through sheer willpower, and trying to suppress a thought usually backfires. A phenomenon psychologists call the rebound effect, where the harder you try not to think about something, the more it intrudes. Instead, the real work is building alternative paths, so the old one slowly loses its status as the default route. The first technique comes directly from Rick Hanson's research, and it's disarmingly simple. It's called taking in the good. Because your brain is Teflon for positive experiences, the fix isn't to manufacture more positive moments. You likely have plenty already. The fix is to pause on the ones you already have. When something good happens, even something small, a warm cup of coffee, a genuine laugh, a task completed, stop for 10 to 20 seconds and actually let yourself feel it. Notice where it shows up in your body. Let it register as significant. Hanson's research suggests that this small act of lingering is what transfers an experience from fleeting to stored, essentially giving positive moments the same neural priority your brain automatically gives to threats. It won't feel necessary. That's the whole point. The habit of skipping past good moments is exactly the habit you're retraining. The second technique targets rumination directly, and it comes from cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most extensively researched approaches in clinical psychology. It's called cognitive diffusion, and the core idea is this. You are not required to believe a thought just because your brain produced it. A thought is not a fact. It's a mental event, generated automatically, often by that oversensitive smoke detector system we talked about earlier. Here's a simple version you can use immediately. Instead of thinking, I'm going to fail this, try inserting a small phrase in front of it. I'm having the thought that I'm going to fail this. It sounds almost too minor to matter, but research in this area, including work by psychologist Stephen Hayes on what's known as acceptance and commitment therapy, has found that this kind of linguistic distance measurably reduces how much a thought controls your behavior and mood. You're not arguing with the thought. You're not suppressing it. You're simply stepping back far enough to see it as one mental event passing through, rather than an accurate report on reality. The third technique addresses the rumination cycle at a structural level, because trying to stop ruminating through willpower alone rarely works. You need to interrupt the loop with something concrete. This is often called scheduled worry time, and it's used in clinical settings for anxiety and rumination. Instead of trying to banish negative thoughts the moment they appear, which usually makes them louder, you designate a specific 10 to 15-minute window each day, say 5 p.m., as the only time you're allowed to fully engage with worries and ruminations. When an intrusive negative thought shows up outside that window, You don't fight it, and you don't ignore it. You simply note it, sometimes literally writing it down, and tell yourself calmly, I'll think about this at 5. Studies on this technique, including research led by psychologist Thomas Borkovec, have found it can significantly reduce the overall time people spend in anxious rumination without requiring them to never think the thought at all. It works because it doesn't ask your brain to do the impossible. It simply gives the alarm system a scheduled time to sound, rather than a lifetime permit to sound whenever it wants. Let's bring this together, because none of these 3 techniques on their own is a magic fix. And that's actually reassuring, because it means you're not failing if one thought creeps back in tomorrow. Taking in the good works on storage. It helps your brain file away positive experiences with the same weight it automatically gives to negative ones, slowly balancing a system that started out lopsided by design. Cognitive diffusion works on belief. It loosens the automatic assumption that every thought your mind produces deserves your full trust, creating space between you and the alarm bell. And scheduled worry time works on structure. It gives the rumination cycle a boundary, a container, instead of letting it spill freely across your entire day. Together, they don't silence the ancient threat detection system in your brain. They're not supposed to. That system, oversensitive as it is, still has a job to do, and trying to shut it off entirely would be its own kind of mistake. What these techniques do instead is stop that system from running the whole show. They give the quieter, slower, more deliberate parts of your mind a fair chance to be heard too. It's worth sitting with this for a moment. The same brain that produces your anxious 3 a.m. thoughts is the brain that can notice a sunset, learn a new skill, fall in love, solve a problem it's never seen before. It's not 2 different brains. It's one brain with an ancient alarm system built in and a remarkable capacity to grow around that alarm system when you give it the chance. So if you walked into this video wondering whether something was wrong with you for how loud your negative thoughts feel, the honest answer is no. Nothing is wrong with you. You're carrying hardware built for a world of rustling bushes and unpredictable predators, and you're using it to navigate emails, deadlines, and relationships instead. Of course, the alarm goes off more than it should. It was never calibrated for this world in the first place. What you do have is a say in what happens next. Every time you pause to take in something good, every time you notice a thought instead of becoming it, every time you tell your mind, gently, not now, 5 o'clock. You're not fighting your brain. You're teaching it. And brains, it turns out, are remarkably good students, at any age, given enough repetition and enough time. If this gave you a new way of understanding your own mind, that's exactly what this channel is here for. Taking real psychological research and turning it into something you can actually use in your everyday life. If you'd like more of that, consider subscribing, so the next video finds you when it's ready. And if there's a thought that's been looping in your head lately, I'd genuinely like to know. Leave it in the comments, or just leave a word about what resonated. Sometimes naming the thought out loud is the very first step in loosening its grip. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'll see you in the next one.